Bored of using your static looking application? Let's try to add some fun to it by using animations. In this episode of the Forgotten Flutter Show, I am Vishal and today we are going to learn how to add animations to our Flutter application. Let's get started. In Android Studio, I have created a new Flutter project and I have set up this particular code for you. This is a Flutter logo which has a height and width of 100 and the elevated button which says animate. We are going to click on this animate button to animate our Flutter object. The first animation that we are going to learn is how to scale this Flutter logo. Currently it has a height and width of 100. We are going to scale it up to 400. To do that, first we need a stateful widget and then we need an animation controller. That's because we are going to initialize it at a later stage. We need an animation and that is going to have double values. Let's initialize these two values inside initState method. Let's have controller and its duration is going to be 2 seconds. And here you can see we have an error and it needs something that is called a ticker provider. So over here we are going to add with single ticker provider state mixin. Next, let's initialize our animation object and the animation is going to have a twin. It is going to take double values and it is going to take two parameters, that is the beginning and the ending values. So the beginning value is going to be 100.0 and the end value is going to be 400. And we are going to animate it and pass the controller over here. Now we are going to add a listener to it and inside the listener we are going to set state. The value of the animation changes here and updates the UI. So let me explain this particular part of the code. This is our animation controller which will control our animation. It takes values between 0 and 1. But here we need to change values between 100 and 400 and that is way out of range of 0 and 1. To do that we are going to use twin, which comes from the word between, and it can have ranges from 100 to 400 and even from different data types such as colors. Next we are going to animate between these values, that is 100 and 400, and we have to pass the controller. Next I have added a listener for it. So whenever the controller value changes, it is going to set state and change the UI of our application. Now to change the height and width of our Flutter logo, let's change these parameters. So the height is now going to be my animation.value and width is going to be the same thing, animation.value. And inside our elevated button, we are going to have controller.forward. So the animation moves in the forward direction. And if the controller value is equal to 1, that is the control has reached the end of our animation, we are going to reverse it, that is controller.reverse. And finally, once our application is complete, we need to dispose our animation controller in the dispose method. So it's just as easy as controller.dispose. Let's hot restart our application and try our animation. So the application has been restarted. Let's click on the animate and we can see how the Flutter logo scaled up in 2 seconds. We can of course change the duration to be faster or slower. Let's click the animate button again and see if it shrinks back to its original size. And yes, it does. So the animation class over here that we are using does not know what is on the screen. It just knows its state and its current value. Animation is done by interpolating between these ranges and finding out the double values between them. Let's try to add a second animation to this Flutter logo. So here I have my logo, show context actions, wrap with widget, and it is going to be my opacity widget. And the opacity widget needs opacity parameter and it should be between 0 and 1. So instead of passing a twin, we can have controller dot value, which is definitely going to be between 0 and 1. Let's reload the application and we cannot see the logo over here because the value of the controller is right now 0, so it has nothing over here. Let's animate it and we can see it fading in to the view. And if I click on animate again, it is going to fade out of view. We can also have a curved animation for our opacity widget. Curved animation is basically a non-linear animation. So right now we were doing a linear animation, that is it was changing from 0 to 1 linearly. But if we want something like we want the object to come in at a slower rate from the beginning, then increase its rate of fading in towards the middle of the animation, and then again slow down when it is just about to have 100% opacity. So for that I'm going to have a curved animation. The parent is going to be the same controller, and the curve is going to be curves.easeIn, and the reverse curve is going to be curve.easeOut. Sorry, it's going to be curves. And instead of having opacity controller, we are going to call it opacity animation. Okay, there we go. And again I am going to have to add your listeners over here. So add listener and set state, and here I am going to have the values. Hot restart the application. Let's animate it, and you can see a little bit different animation when it is fading in and fading out. To rotate the logo, we can have transform dot rotate, and it is going to need a angle parameter. Angle is going to be 3.14, that is going to be pi into some value. Let's have the value as the value of the animation controller. That's much better. So this way we can use our animation controllers, twins and animation objects to play with our Flutter application and have beautiful animations to it. You can also use the position widget to change the position of our Flutter logo over here. So far we are trying to achieve some of our animations the way we wanted. We were customizing our animations, but if you don't want so much customization, Flutter makes it extremely easy to build your animations. So instead of using the opacity and the animation value, we can use fade transition. So if we head over to the API documentation of Flutter, we can see the different APIs that Flutter gives us. So let's try one, that is the fade transition. So I'm just going to go to the fade transition documentation and copy the code from there. Let's understand this. It is very similar to the one we created. We created the animation controller with 2 seconds duration, and instead of animating, we are going to repeat it on a loop. At one moment it is going to animate in the forward direction, and when it completes it is going to just go back in the reverse direction, and it is going to keep looping on. Then we have our curved animation with the ease in. We are disposing the controller. See how the code has shrunk over here. We are just using the fade transition and the opacity. We are going to pass the animation object, and that's all we have to do. And if we restart the application, you can see it in action, just like that. So you can very easily add animations to your Flutter application and make it fun to use. That's all for this episode. If you like this episode, hit the like button. Thanks for watching and keep coding.